San Quentin State Prison stands on the edge of San Francisco Bay, facing open water and the city skyline. It operates as California's oldest prison and one of the most historically violent institutions in the United States. From its earliest years, confinement here centers on punishment, control, and execution. The prison's design, population pressure, and long exposure to violence shape daily life inside its walls. Opened in 1852, San Quentin State Prison begins as a response to California's rapid population growth after the gold rush. The state needs a permanent penitentiary. San Quentin is built quickly, using inmate labor and basic materials. Security is minimal by modern standards. The original structures are cramped, poorly ventilated, and unsuited for long-term confinement. These early choices never fully disappear. They influence every decade that follows. The prison sits on low ground by the bay. Salt air corrodes metal. Moisture seeps into stone and concrete. Over time, the physical plant ages without comprehensive replacement. New housing units are added, but many original structures remain in use well into the 20th century. The result is a patchwork facility where modern security measures coexist with obsolete layouts. Blind corners, narrow walkways, and crowded cell blocks increase risk for everyone inside. From the start, San Quentin houses prisoners convicted of serious crimes. Violence inside the prison mirrors violence outside it. Guards rely on force, isolation, and strict discipline. Medical care is limited. Mental health treatment is minimal for most of the prison's history. Overcrowding becomes routine. At various points, inmate populations exceed design capacity by large margins. Cells intended for one person hold two or more. Tension becomes constant. San Quentin's reputation grows alongside California's expanding criminal justice system. Executions take place regularly. Hanging is the first method used. Later, the gas chamber becomes the primary instrument of death. The prison becomes the state's official execution site. Death sentences from across California end here. The condemned are housed in separate units, isolated from the general population but never fully removed from institutional violence. Life on death row is defined by confinement. Condemned inmates spend decades awaiting execution as legal appeals move slowly through the courts. Cells are small. Movement is restricted. Contact with others is limited. For much of the 20th century, conditions are harsh and monotonous. Noise from the main prison carries into death row housing. The awareness of scheduled executions shapes daily existence for inmates and staff alike. Within the first moments of understanding how this prison operates, it becomes clear why these histories matter. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing, because what happens next reveals how this system truly works. San Quentin's gas chamber begins operating in the 1930s. Executions are public in the sense that witnesses are present. Journalists report on them. The state treats execution as a routine function of incarceration. Over time, hundreds of men are executed here. The chamber becomes a symbol of California's commitment to capital punishment during much of the 20th century. High-profile executions draw national attention. These events influence debates about the death penalty, prison conditions, and state power. Yet inside San Quentin, daily operations continue much the same. Guards manage overcrowded tiers. Inmates navigate rigid hierarchies shaped by race, sentence length, and gang affiliation. Violence erupts with little warning. Gang activity increases significantly in the mid-20th century. Racial segregation becomes more pronounced inside the prison, often reinforced by both inmates and staff. Alliances form for protection. Conflicts over territory, contraband, and perceived disrespect escalate into assaults and killings. San Quentin's physical layout makes separation difficult. Once violence starts, it spreads quickly. Inmate murders become a recurring feature of San Quentin's history. Some occur during riots. Others happen in isolated cells or communal areas. Weapons are improvised from tools, scrap metal, or stolen items. Guards conduct searches, but complete control is impossible. Overcrowding ensures constant contact between hostile groups. Staff members also face serious risk. Correctional officers are assaulted and, in some cases, killed. Working conditions are stressful. Shifts are long. Training standards evolve slowly compared to the pace of violence. The psychological toll on staff is significant, though rarely discussed publicly for much of the prison's history. One of the most violent periods occurs in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Social unrest outside the prison reflects conditions inside. Political movements influence inmate organizing. Tensions between prisoners and authorities escalate. San Quentin becomes a focal point for debates about prison reform, racial justice, and state violence. In 1971, a deadly incident inside the prison draws international attention. A courtroom hostage situation connected to San Quentin leads to multiple deaths, including a judge. Although the event occurs outside the prison walls, it directly involves inmates housed at San Quentin and exposes failures in oversight and security. The aftermath brings increased scrutiny but limited structural change. Throughout these decades, infrastructure problems persist. Plumbing fails. Electrical systems are outdated. Fire hazards increase. Evacuation plans are difficult to execute due to narrow corridors and locked gates. These risks affect everyone inside, regardless of sentence. San Quentin continues to serve as the primary death row facility for California. By the late 20th century, death row population grows substantially as courts impose capital sentences faster than executions occur. Legal challenges slow the process. Inmates remain confined for decades. The prison becomes one of the largest death row facilities in the Western Hemisphere. Conditions on death row draw increasing criticism. Cells remain small. Exercise opportunities are limited. Medical and mental health services struggle to meet demand. Suicides occur. Self-harm incidents are reported. Advocacy groups and courts begin to examine whether prolonged death row confinement constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Despite legal challenges, executions continue intermittently until the early 21st century. The gas chamber is replaced by lethal injection, but San Quentin remains the execution site. The chamber itself is preserved, a physical reminder of the prison's history. Executions become rarer, but the infrastructure for death remains in place. The general population at San Quentin also faces chronic overcrowding. Rehabilitation programs exist but are limited by space and staffing. Educational opportunities fluctuate based on funding and policy shifts. Some inmates access vocational training, while others spend years with little structured activity. Idle time fuels tension. Healthcare at San Quentin is a persistent concern. Aging inmates, including those on death row, require increased medical attention. Facilities struggle to keep pace. Lawsuits force reforms, but implementation is uneven. In some periods, outside receivers are appointed to oversee medical services due to systemic failures. San Quentin's location adds complexity. Its proximity to urban areas contrasts sharply with the isolation typically associated with prisons. Public visibility does not translate into transparency. Much of what happens inside remains hidden until incidents force attention. The prison also becomes a site of execution-related protest. Demonstrations occur outside the gates. Families of victims and condemned inmates gather during scheduled executions. These scenes underscore the broader social conflict surrounding capital punishment, but they do not alter daily life inside the prison walls. By the early 21st century, California imposes a moratorium on executions. Death row remains populated, but executions stop. Inmates continue to live under death sentences without a clear timeline. San Quentin adapts administratively but retains its identity as a death row institution. Violence does not disappear. Assaults continue in housing units and yards. Gang dynamics shift but remain influential. Staff shortages increase stress levels. The aging infrastructure continues to pose safety hazards. Each problem compounds the others. San Quentin's history influences national prison policy discussions. It serves as an example of what happens when punishment dominates institutional design. Rehabilitation becomes secondary. Over time, the costs of this approach become visible in litigation, medical crises, and repeated security failures. Today, San Quentin stands as a functioning prison and a historical symbol. It embodies the evolution of American incarceration from the 19th century to the present. Its walls contain stories of execution, confinement, and institutional neglect. The prison's continued operation reflects unresolved questions about punishment, safety, and human rights. The legacy of San Quentin is not confined to its past. Decisions made decades ago still shape conditions today. Aging buildings remain in use. Policies created for control persist even as their effectiveness is questioned. The prison's reputation as one of the deadliest in California is rooted in documented history, not myth. San Quentin does not exist in isolation. It reflects broader trends in American criminal justice. Overcrowding, racial division, and reliance on extreme punishment appear across the system. What makes San Quentin distinct is how long and how visibly these elements have operated in one place. As debates about prison reform continue, San Quentin remains central to the conversation. Its history offers clear evidence of the consequences of neglecting infrastructure, healthcare, and rehabilitation. The violence that defined its past serves as a warning rather than an anomaly. The prison continues to hold thousands of inmates. Daily routines proceed under constant security measures. Guards patrol tiers built generations ago. Inmates navigate a system shaped by policies older than many of them. The bay outside remains calm, indifferent to what happens inside. San Quentin's story is not one of redemption or closure. It is a record of how punishment becomes normalized within an institution. Executions, once routine, leave lasting scars even after they stop. Overcrowding and violence leave institutional memory that does not fade quickly. Understanding San Quentin requires acknowledging its full history. It is not defined by a single riot, execution, or reform effort. It is defined by continuity. The same forces that shaped it in the 19th century continue to influence it today. The prison stands as a physical reminder of an era when incarceration and execution were openly central to state policy. That era's structures remain, even as public attitudes shift. San Quentin continues to operate within this tension. The question is not whether San Quentin was deadly. The historical record shows that it was. The question is what that history reveals about the system that created and sustained it. The answer lies in the walls that still stand and the lives still confined within them.